Awesome. All right. (1974), the land of the rising sun. New Japan's inaugural World League, a showcase for the best and brightest in the world of professional wrestling, sees Antonio Inoki claim ultimate victory over Seiji Sakaguchi and Killer Karl Krupp. It is a seed that takes root and gestates and will bear fruit twice in the coming years. 1978's MSG series with Andre the Giant. 1983's International Wrestling Grand Prix with Hulk Hogan. But its greatest yield comes in 1991 in the form of what is now known as the single most grueling and taxing summer marathon in the history of professional wrestling. The list of all-time greats that have competed in and won this tournament over its 3 decades plus of life is far too dense and numerous to unpack. But it is safe to say that if you are a professional wrestler and your aim is to test your mettle in the steepest way possible against the best of the world has to offer, taking part in this tournament will leave you with absolutely no doubt about where you stand. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the day of fate is upon us once more. The season may have shifted, but the heat is no less intense, the pace is no less torrid, and the workload is no less agonizing. It is finally time for the most prestigious tournament in all of professional wrestling. He's the one! Shin Nihon Pro Wrestling presents G1 Climax 31!
That's said. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, professional wrestling fans, new and old alike. Konnichiwa to you all. Yes, it is that time once again where I bring you a simple preview of this year's G1 Climax as we get ready to celebrate and engage in the most wild time a professional wrestling fan can see and have every year, where one-of-a-kind classics and Meltzer skill rating breakout matches and wrestlers are showcased and made. The list goes on and on, the facts, the excitement, the notes. We could be here all night, but I promise you we'll try and keep it under an hour. But yes, we are here to bring you our insight to this year's G1 Climax 31. No tagline this year so far, but of course we do have a new musical opposition for this year's G1. As of course the blocks were announced at the MetLife Dome at the conclusion of Grand Slam during day 2 before the mid-break, and I could not be more excited with the amount of participants we have. Returning greats, first times evers, consecutive participants, and some that never have really won this thing that you want to. With that being said, I am of course the Superman Noah Foster, joined by the man that gave you that incredible prelude and introduction towards why we love this so much. And JPW, the king of sports streaming. Of course, I am with the Wrestling Encyclopedia, Casey Gallagher. Casey, how are you this evening? Incredible introduction.
Arigato ne, Noah. Arigato ne. I am stupidly hyped. It's G1 time, baby. Let's go.
I mean, again, you go into the fall of professional wrestling, you damn sure look at the G1 Climax. And shout out, of course, to Storm doing their 5-star Grand Prix. Good luck to all the participants. I definitely have favoritism, of course, with Utami and Momo Watanabe. Incredible, by the way, back-to-back performances by the cast of Stardom during New Japan Pro Wrestling's Grand Slam and MetLife Dome. I'm glad to finally see they got the showcase visibly on NJPW World. I hope more of that is to come.
Am I correct in assuming that the 5-star Grand Prix is the G1 equivalent for Stardom?
You would be correct, sir.
Awesome.
It's like the Cinderella tournament, basically. Is I like to think the equivalent, sort of a different tournament, not necessarily the New Japan Cup, but again, folks, we just don't have enough time to watch everything Stardom. I encourage you to follow podcasts, Voices of Wrestling, and Samurai News, Kings of World Wrestling as well. That being said,
and if you can. Go subscribe to stardom-world.com.
That's right. And hi, Kevin Kelly. And of course, folks, this year's G1 Climax every day will be live, brought to you with English commentary too, by, of course, the English voice of New Japan Pro Wrestling, Kevin Kelly. And kudos to you, sir, for all the hard work you do. Arigato. With that being said, let's go ahead and kick this shindig off. So, of course, the blocks, they were announced, and you see the following. Bullet Club galore. The greats like Kazuchika Okada. And, of course, the man who I believe has the most in-ring time in G1 and the most matches in this thing to date, the ace of New Japan, of course, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and so
the current U.S. champion. The current U.S. champion.
Yes, after an incredible, successful defense against Kota Ibushi, where once again, Tanahashi and Kota Ibushi gives you endless classics when they clash with each other. It makes me wonder, could that be a potential final for this year's G1, where we look at Kota Ibushi, who's in A block. And again, this is the guy now who has won the G1 Climax, literally an insane 2 times in a row. Very few men have done that. He is up there with, and by the way, folks, for those who don't know what the G stands for, it's grade 1. This is what separates the greats from the elites, from the all-time best in the world. You are grade 1. You are literally up and above and beyond everybody else in the world of professional wrestling. And that's what this tournament is here to make you try and define yourself to be. Kota Ibushi, of course, who won this last year, being a 2-time winner. This will be his 5th consecutive appearance, but his 7th time in the G1. Again, the list goes on and on. Before we break down more into, what we're excited about, give you a little more insight to each of the participants. Casey, you see the blocks before you. Give me your brief insight towards the seven of the blocks, and what are you most surprised by, or what are you most intrigued by?
Well, before we do that, I believe it'd be a good idea to really run down the list of who's in which block. Your guy obviously is in block A, so I'll leave that one to you. In B block, we have the current U.S. champion for New Japan, the ace, Hiroshi Tanahashi. We also have the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada. Correct me if I'm wrong, is that Hiroki Goto?
You would be right, Hiroki Goto. And might I add, he has not won this thing since 2008, and this is his 14th consecutive time in this thing.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's a record among New Japan competitors.
You would be correct in that. Literally, he is the second most participant, right? Well, third most, participant in this year's G1 as far as the consecutive side goes. The only ones that go above him in the number of consecutive times is, of course, who you just mentioned, and the guy that is the scourge of my anxiety, freaking Yano. But I digress. Continue running down who's in the B block.
Okay, so after Hiroki Goto, we have honestly kind of a surprise pick, but one who has definitely left his mark on this event. We have the not to be underestimated Yoshihashi in block B, along with the Cold Skull himself, a star in the making for quite some time, the almost cold-blooded at times, Sanada. Very stoic, very reserved, but you don't want to underestimate him when you step foot in that ring.
No.
Keeping things going, on the other side of things, we have the musical side of Suzuki-gun in the Emperor Tai Chi.
That's the holy emperor. Put respect behind the man with the great voice.
Gomenasai, Noah-san.
I'm Suzuki-gun Pro, all right? So I'm going to get on you about that. And congratulations, by the way, to both Dangerous Tekkers and the team of Yoshinobu Kawamaro and El Desperado, who may have broke his right hand. Damn. And, of course, claiming both sets of the IWGP Tag Team Championships. Suzuki-gun owning Tag Team Wrestling.
So Suzuki-gun is on their way back up, but we have my guys from my faction in each block, and in B block for the representatives, we have one half of the deal makers in Bullet Club, one half of the Gorillas of Destiny, the OG Tama Tonga.
Good bad guy.
Oh, speaking of bad guys, we come now to one of the ultimate bad guys from 2020, the shock defection from Los Ingobernables de Japón, from LIJ to the Tommy gun. Everything is dark with the king of darkness, Evil.
And the current leader of his own faction inside Bullet Club, too, you might want to add.
With the newly added is it Show, I believe, that is just showing that?
That is correct.
Yes, Roppongi 3K is no more. Who'd have thunk that, huh?
10 years of brotherhood broken by a man just literally at the point now that he feels like you really have been holding me down. I can't surpass myself, constantly being by your side. I no longer need you. You're dead weight. You felt like that drive to be the best was out of Yo, even in reclaiming or trying to reclaim the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championship. So Show, who really may believe is like the heavyweight of the junior heavyweight division and is a breakout to go heavyweight, has finally decided to go off on his own to be the super junior heavyweight now for Bullet Club.
In the House of Torture, yes. Speaking of breakout stars, we have from the Commonwealth Empire the Samoan terrorizer Jeff Cobb.
Oh,
This
guy. This freaking guy, good Lord Almighty, one of the strongest overall pin records this year in both tag and singles action, coming off the greatest of victories so far in beating Landmaker Kazuchika Okada at the MetLife Dome. And yes, the United Empire, folks. We know.
Yes. They may be all over the place, but they are no less united for it. Neither, despite all the turmoil they've been through over the past couple of years, is Bullet Club, who round out the B block contention with the an outsider among outsiders in his own right. We round out B block with Mr. Chase Owens.
Crown Jewel, former KLPW provisional champion, falling short of retaining that title after literally basically seeing his life flash before his eyes, as his eye was almost taken out by a man that we will talk about shortly in the other block, that I hope he brings that version of him versus the version that causes me constant anxiety.
Indeed. With B block set and in stone, I turn it over to you, Noah. Take us through A block.
When I think about the A block, I think about this is the highest of highs, the top tier talent, the main state names of New Japan Pro Wrestling. It always feels like the A block is the block to watch, while the B block more so, you look for a surprise. This A block is no different. You have the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Shingo Takagi defending his right to choose his opponent for Wrestle Kingdom, and we'll talk more about that later, of course, about what the G1 means and what it's about. We also, of course, have the MVP of performers in the G1 since its inauguration, in my opinion, the Stone Pitbull Tomohiro Ishii, who truly made a name for himself and garnered respect through what he brings through this tournament. Again, as I said, we have the Golden Star Kota Ibushi, who won last year. We have, of course, freaking
and the year before. Yeah, all our nervousness.
Who's been
all
now,
of our nervousness.
Yeah, this is the guy that broke John Moxley. Just saying, Death Rider. All right. Anyway, yes, Toru Yano, who's in this now for the 16th time, he has yet to win this thing, but when it comes to being a spoiler, this is the guy to fear. We also have the man that is tranquilo, Tetsuya Naito, former two-time winner, who again literally lost his chance to be part of the finals against, of course, Sonata or Kota Ibushi because of another man that I'm going to talk about now, the submission master, Zack Sabre Jr., one half of Dangerous Tigers, the current IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Champions. And Zack Sabre Jr. has literally done everything in New Japan Pro Wrestling except win the G1. This will be his 5th consecutive time. Making his debut is the Dominator, Bret Khan, who definitely has history with several of these people in this block. So expect some classic rivalries renewed. And of course, shout out to my friend on Twitter, BCS for Life, Kenta, of course, Mr. Fangs himself, in it once again, 3rd consecutive time since coming back to New Japan Pro Wrestling when he announced himself to be part of G1 Climax29, being brought in by Katsura Shibata, the wrestler himself, during Dominion. And of course, since then, he's been part of Bullet Club and just been given as the classics, but always has that chip on his shoulder. Speaking of one half of GLD, you got the other half in a guy that is very rare to see in singles action, but is also making his G1 Climax debut. The silverback, Tonga Loa. Tonga Loa is one guy who expects you to hit him hard, but he's going to hit you harder. And of course, we have Tokyo Pip, former Never Weight champion. Yes, that was once a thing. Yujiro Takahashi, whether or not Pita will be watching on and dancing on from his corner, which I'm sure is why more people watch this guy. That remains to be seen. But this will be his 8th entry, second consecutive time. And when you look at these Bullet Club members, it seems like last time, for example, when Tama Tonga was in this thing, he had a motive to stop the current former at the time IWGP Heavyweight Champion Kenny Omega from winning the thing, because of course there was a split in Bullet Club itself when they formed Firing Squad. Now, whether or not GOD is in favor of Evil and his sub-faction, or they side with Jay White, the deal makers, they always hold all the cards. We'll have to see what both of these men bring in each of the respective blocks. I find it very interesting. We have both GOD in separate blocks this year. And of course, that rounds out our entire field of 20. In the end,
are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Did I space out, or did I miss you, or did you miss a guy?
Nope, that's everybody, man. Kota, Ishii, Yano, Shingo, Naito, Zack Sabre Jr., Great-O-Khan, Kenta, Tongaloa, Yujiro, and you name the B block. Tanahashi, Okada, Goto, Yoshihashi, Sanada, Taiji, see how the names kind of like clash together. Tamatonga, Evo, Jeff Cobb, and Chase Owens. Now, I will say this. I'm a little bit upset.
I missed you talking about Kenta.
That's all right. I will say this. I'm a little bit upset that my favorite, the King, Kasaninale, and notice he's not involved in this, but of course he's involved in GCW and NJPW of America. Will Ospreay, of course, who's been formerly involved in the G1, announced he will not be involved in this either. He is currently now staying his home in New Japan of America as well. And rumor has it, maybe looking for another member of the United Empire in a tag team bout where his tag team partner is a mystery. So if y'all aren't watching NJPW Strong, start watching it. And remember, next Saturday, NJPW Strong makes its home on Saturday nights. So stay tuned for more on that. So with that being said, we announced the 20 participants. Let's go ahead and break down a little bit what the G1 Climax is about. For those that don't know, it is a round-robin tournament that consists over a period of days with block internal action only. And
everybody fights everybody.
Yep. And basically what it comes down to is 30-minute time limits in every match. You get 2 points if you win, 1 point for a draw, 0 if you lose. And there will be tiebreakers based on, okay, this guy beat this guy, but this guy beat that guy. Things can really get interesting when you go further down in the G1 Climax. But what it comes down to is the highest scores in both A block and B block will face each other one-on-one in the finale to determine this year's winner of the G1 Climax. Now, Casey, why don't you explain what the winner gets and how that has been working so far for those winners in the past?
Well, besides the eternal glory of having your name engraved on the cup as a winner of the G1 Climax, nowadays, and this tradition started in 2013 with the Rainmaker, the winner of the G1 Climax, if they are not a champion, if they do not hold a belt, gets the right to challenge the IWGP World Champion in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom in Tokyo Dome.
Right. But also, it is not an easy freelance road for both the winner of the G1 and the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. As of course,
that's correct.
Both men will have to go face their demons and successfully defend their claim and their title to keep that match intact. Usually for each, it's 2 defenses. And since the inauguration of the G1, only one man has failed to successfully defend that briefcase heading up to Wrestle Kingdom. And ironically, that was Kota Ibushi, who fell short to Jay White. But what's also interesting is the statistical overall of the winner of the G1 cashing in on that briefcase successfully. Isn't it, Casey?
Yes, indeed. Ooh, you talk about a wasn't I'm a little rusty on my modern New Japan history. Has anyone successfully cashed in besides Okada?
Only one man, to my knowledge, besides Okada, cashed in. And I believe that one man was the ace of New Japan, Hiroshi Tanahashi, casting successfully at Kenny Omega at Wrestle Kingdom 13. Honestly, I think he might be the only one, because I think Okada, he lost against the ace. Because again, Okada and Tanahashi have faced each other at Wrestle Kingdom now like 4 times, I think. I've lost count, maybe 3. 8, 9, and 10, folks. Go watch them. And of course, it was Okada who won the G1. I believe it was back at Wrestle Kingdom 9 and lost to the Ace. But of course, the Ace endorsed him as being a future legend of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Case in point today. It was at Wrestle Kingdom 10, however, where Okada, he came in as champion and was being challenged by the Ace. The Ace came up short. To this day, the only one successfully cash in that briefcase at the match to win it is Tanahashi. Okada, he won, but he didn't win for G1. He won Jay White off of the New Japan Cup. Similar circumstances, but again, totally different ball game with the Destruction Tour. I wonder if King of Pro Wrestling is going to happen. I don't know if it really does anymore because KLPW with the Junior Tag League and the Road to Tokyo Dome, anything's possible. But with that being said, so that's
can I also
go ahead.
Yes, and can I also talk about something a little bit more interesting?
Please.
You mentioned that Kota Ibushi lost his right to challenge last year.
Yes.
Well, the champion at the time, Tetsuya Naito, said, "Hey, we got us a little bit of a thing going on. Wrestle Kingdom's going to be 2 nights. You know what? I'll face both of you, because Jay White won the briefcase off of Kota, and Tetsuya Naito said, you know what? I'll fight both of you guys. I'll fight Kota the first night, and if I beat him, I'll face Jay White the second night."
Well, the thing about Tetsuya Naito, he was the guy that wanted to really claim that for himself. He wanted to make history. He made history becoming the first to hold both IWGP Intercontinental and formerly called IWGP Heavyweight World Championships at once, RIP to those 2 titles. And of course, Kota Ibushi, he basically merged those two through Legacy and Evolution, thus becoming the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. Of course, lost that to Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay had to be vacated according to New Japan rules. And next thing you know, Okada and Shingo fought for the vacated title. Shingo won it successfully, and has so far had 2 successful defenses against Hiroshi Tanahashi and Evil. So Shingo Takagi right now, he is in this to try and control his destiny, though to this day, no IWGP World Champion has won the G1 to control their destiny at Tokyo Dome themselves. Okada came very close back in 2019, but Sonata stopped that. The question is, will somebody stop Shingo from doing the same thing? Where originally when Shingo first came in and he literally ran the gauntlet and literally beat everybody in the IWGP junior heavyweight, best of the juniors. Sorry, folks. Words.
Best of the Super Juniors. Yes.
Best of the Super Juniors. He ran the gauntlet. I don't know if Shingo can pull that off in the G1, but right now Shingo Takagi is definitely up there as I think Tokyo Sports MVP this year, based on his performance alone. So with that being said, we look at all 20 of these men. Let's go ahead and talk about the action to come. And folks, if you want to watch this, you need to go to njpwworld.com. They will give you this special event called the G1 Climax League Festival for free. That's right, free. But again, this service literally only less than $10 a month. It is worth every penny. You will get matches not only from New Japan's then and now and forever, but of course, the Forbidden Door allows you to see New Japan influenced matches from AEW and Impact Wrestling, including recently Satoshi Kojima versus Jon Moxley. It is on njpwworld.com. And of course,
on that note, I do have to ask you. You were at a recent AEW event in Cincinnati. If I'm not much mistaken, the match of the night was Jon Moxley versus Minoru Suzuki.
Oh my gosh, it was such a damn good war. I wish it went longer. It didn't go as long as the New Beginning because, TV restrictions. But overall, I say for me, that was the match next. It was my first exposure to New Japan Pro Wrestling because I've been wanting to go to a New Japan show my whole life. I hope to achieve that next year. I was going to go Wrestle Dynasty, but I digress. Darn you, pandemic! But anyway, yes, I really enjoyed that. And honestly, I do hope Jon Moxley returns to New Japan Pro Wrestling once again. I would love to see him be in another G1, but he's not in this year's. And might I add, Casey, Wrestle Kingdom next year is 3 nights. We're going to definitely talk about that more as we get closer. But folks, get ready for the ride of your life in New Japan Pro Wrestling's 50th year of professional wrestling next year, starting 2022 with a 3-night Wrestle Kingdom. That being said, let's go ahead and talk about our opening nights. As you can see before you, the opening night will be, of course, a Blockatology, and it will be September 18th. There you see the times before you. Set your times accordingly. And again, whether Casey with me every time or not, I will be, of course, giving you, once again this year, simple takes following each day's action. But I think for these 2 opening days, Casey, you and I should at least set the groundwork for what we think may be the rest of the G1 and come together, because we will have a short reprieve between the first day of each block action to the next. So I think you and I definitely need to come together for that. Details to come later, folks. And again, keep following my channel and follow this man's channel, FTW Wrestle Fortunes, Weymouth Youth Wrestling. Descriptions will be down below. That being said, let's go ahead and look at this opening day. So we got Kota Ibushi versus Jiro Takahashi, Great Khan versus Tonga Loa, Tetsuya Naito versus Zack Sabre Jr., Toru Yano versus Kenta, and this is going to be my match, Tomohiro Ishii versus Shingo Takagi. Oh my God.
Let's freaking go.
So, Casey, give me your thoughts on this opening day match lineup. What are you most anticipating, and what do you maybe think could surprise you?
Well, I'm definitely most looking forward to Ishii versus Takagi, because those two have known each other for years. They've been fantastic opponents in pretty much that entire span. And with Shingo having stepped up his game to its absolute zenith recently, we've got a war on our hands, and it's more likely that if this is not the main event, then personally I don't know what should be. As for my sleeper hit, it's either gonna be Kota versus Yujiro or Naito versus Zack. Those two matches, people sleep on Yujiro Takahashi because of his gimmick. Yes. That man can go when that bell rings. Do not sleep on the Tokyo Pimp. He will surprise you throughout this G1.
Well, let's go ahead and take a look based on what you talk about, Yujiro, the history of his year, basically. I mean, for the longest time, he was trying to overcome Okada. He and Okada were having a bit of a singles thing. Since then, he's kind of fallen back now to contend for the 6-man overweight tag team championships with Bullet Club type setups. And they have yet to pull these titles off the greatest trio, in my opinion, of these titles. Tomohiro Ishii, Yoshihashi, and of course, Hiroki Goto, who I believe now has essentially defended these things 9 times. Unbelievable. That being said, again, Kota Ibushi, he is literally one of those that truly is never say die and goes more so off instinct. He doesn't really go in with a plan. He more so feels and just comes out the way he feels like he should. Again, Kota Ibushi, he's going for 3 times in a row. Can he make it 3 wins? I don't know. And again, do you set the groundwork with just this match alone? I already told you how I felt about Tetsuya Naito and Zack Sabre Jr. Again, Tetsuya Naito is going to be looking for that victory back in this match, because Zack Sabre Jr. was the one that beat him on the final day of that prospective black action that cost Naito the whole thing. And then I've been waiting for Tomohiro Ishii and Shingo Takagi to go one-on-one since they last did back at what I believe was the New Japan Road for the Never Openweight Championship. And again, Tomohiro Ishii is one of those that even if he doesn't win the G1, he's the guy you're going to talk about the most by the end of the G1 because of the matches he brings. And I'm talking about the history of Tomohiro Ishii matches, whether it's against Kota Ibushi, whether it's against Minoru Suzuki, whether it's against Taiji, or whether it's against, dare I say it, Kenny Omega. Tomohiro Ishii is the guy to watch in the G1 to show you what everybody needs to bring to the G1. And I cannot wait for this match.
MVP of G1 Climax 30.
And honestly, literally, this first match right here could be make or break for Shingo. Think about it. If Shingo loses, that automatically puts Tomohiro Ishii in line for a future IWGP World Heavyweight title shot. Because if you beat the champ,
maybe a King of Pro Wrestling.
If they make that preview happen, I missed that first. I think KFW kind of filtered that out in the whole pandemic shipping schedule. But again, we're going to have to wait and see. But considering Takagi beat the Stone Pitbull second time, I don't know. Now, I do want to talk about a match we really didn't talk about at all. This is Great Khan's first G1 Climax match ever. And he's taking on a guy that's only had, I believe, 2 singles matches in his entire New Japan career. Great Khan has been one of the most, no pun intended, dominant figures in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's had stellar matches with Okada, Naito, and Tanahashi in losing efforts to two of those three men. So this great Okan set the pace for the United Empire and this block and his G1, overcoming Tonga Loa, who is very limited on singles experience. Your thoughts on that?
If you ask me, the smart money is on Great Okan, but do not let Tonga Loa's lack of experience cloud your judgment. This guy is full of surprises. You want to talk about a guy you can never underestimate? Here you are, my man. And with Bullet Club at his back, you cannot afford to count Tonga Loa out.
Yeah, that is true. Nothing else. I expect Jado to be in both GOD's corners respectively, since Jado pretty much has endorsed this tag team and really bestowed upon him his moves and his knowledge. And again, like you said, you throw out like
also, let's not forget the Iron Glove of Iska.
Oh, well, that's now put to rest because, of course, after that wild ladder match earlier this year, Taiji finally put Iska to rest along with the Iron Glove. For all I know, that's buried somewhere deep in concrete, somewhere in Japan, never to be seen again or possess a man. It was a wild way to finally end that too. So you don't need to worry about that.
I'm gonna have to watch that match.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I watch New Japan Pro Wrestling wholeheartedly every single event when I can. But G1, I'll be damned if I miss a single day live. So stay tuned for my live tweeting. That being said, let's see here. What can we expect from freaking Yano versus Kenta? You saw Grand Slam. Yano went back to the roots before he joined freaking Chaos with Shinsuke Nakamura. When he was violent, when he was all out, do anything to win at the sake of your own health. He was going to take Chase Owens' eye for Pete's sake. Now, whether or not that was just one time he was pushed too far, or does he use that going forward? Does it go to his strength to rely on what he's been doing with the goofiness, or should it go back to the old ways against someone like Kenta?
Personally, I would say he keeps a relatively even mix of both, just to keep his opponents guessing.
He always does that, and beware the man when he comes out with a roll of tape. That's all I gotta say about that.
Or when he decides to visit his four friends in each corner of the ring.
Yeah, that's very true. Each one having names. I'm sure Kevin Kelly will tell us the names. But again,
Kevin Kelly or Chris Charlton.
No. Yes, because of course, Chris Charlton gives us the history behind all of this. Great historical mind. I respect the work that he does too. And I hope Rocky Romero does try to join him time and time again, but I know he's working in New Japan of America. So that being said, yeah, definitely my most
Sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead, man.
You mentioned Rocky Romero. I have to wonder how he feels about what the situation between Show and Yo.
Oh boy, I know Kevin Kelly subtly talked about it because I know he and Rocky Romero talk a lot. But again,
this has to be eating at him.
It's like a father's children. He brought Roppongi 3K together in the first place. Those three were one of the most beloved units and effective tag teams in all New Japan Pro Wrestling. And now it's all torn asunder. I don't know if Yo will ever be the same again, honestly. So we'll have to wait and see. And we'll also have to wait and see. Maybe that means someone else joins Chaos down the line. Again, faction warfare. That is the story of New Japan Pro Wrestling. So whoever wins this is definitely going to be the ones to control the state of New Japan, definitely going into 2022, I feel like. That being said,
back to the G1.
Yeah, that being said, so there's your opening day, folks. So if you haven't already, I would go definitely to Voices of Wrestling. I think WrestleDroid does it too. I might try and build one in case we have to try and fill out our brackets. Join a bracket competition, folks. Let your opinions, let your choices be known. Put in your 2, 0s, and 1s, your winners, and everything else for the entire G1 before day one starts. And let's see whose bracket get busted or who can call it right. My bracket got totally busted last year. I'll tell you that much. Casey, have you ever put out a bracket?
No, but that's typically because they usually get busted. Don't let my status as the Indie Force Predictions heavyweight champion fool you. I am not good at predicting things. So
I just find it fun. There's a reason why I predict wrestling, okay? Because at the end of the day, it's fun. So that being said, I'm gonna just put you on the spot right now. Shoot your 5 winners for day one.
Shingo, Zach, Khan, Kota, and Kenta.
Oh, wow. You have Kenta overcoming Yano. Okay. Well, I'm going to go like this. Yujiro literally got one win in last year's G1, I believe. So there's no way I see him beating freaking Kota Ibushi. Kota Ibushi, Great-O-Khan has to set the pace for himself in this G1. Hell of a test to have him go with Great-O-Khan. Naito and Zack Sabre Jr., honestly, those matches have gone close to a draw. And these two, they create magic when the ring together. There's a unique relationship when it comes to Suzuki Go's Dangerous Tekkers and Tetsuya Naito, especially with Sonata, if anyone has been watching New Japan Pro Wrestling. But I'm going to say that Tetsuya Naito gets his win back and gets the 2. Again, it's hard to bet against Yano, but I know that BCS for Life would kill me if I said Yano, so I will say Kenta for her sake. And this one right here, I'm so damn torn. I almost want to go to a draw because I want there to be like a weird tiebreaker scenario because I really want to see Ishii face Takagi for the title. So that being said, it is the champion. I have to go with Shingo Takagi as well, reluctantly. But again, folks, are we right? Are we wrong? You decide. Let us know your predictions in the comments down below or find us on Twitter. That being said, that's the A block. Let's move on to the B block, man. I'll let you give your insights towards these matches as the B block.
Yes, indeed.
Will literally be on the following day. And there's the times, and there you see the matches. Casey, break it down.
Okay. So we're going to start with with what I fully expect to be the main event.
Oh, Lord. Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah, right? Oh, Lord, indeed. Help us all. They're going to tear it down once again. Osaka Prefectural Gymnasium, prepare yourself for history in the making. Hiroshi Tanahashi, Kazuchika Okada. Boom. Let's go. There's really not much I need to say. We've talked at length about the history between these two, how Tanahashi basically watched Okada on the come up after his lengthy American excursion, turned him back at Wrestle Kingdom 9, got turned back at Wrestle Kingdom 10. These two have been up and down the roads. They've been through wars upon wars together. The Rainmaker is the Rainmaker for a reason. But as I'm overly fond of saying, there is only one man who has earned the right to be called the Ace.
Might I add, before you continue talking about the rest of these matches, not just G1, but overall, these men's history. This is literally, according to Cage Match, their 15th singles match against each other. But continue.
Do we really need to say anything else?
These guys opened up when they went to Texas for freaking G1 Climax that year. These two men have literally gone to war as rivals and came together as alliances against Jay White. These two are literally the pillars of New Japan Pro Wrestling then and now. What else needs to be said when it comes to Tanahashi versus Okada? My God.
You really can't say much else.
Anyway, continue.
Man. Oh, man.
Oh, my God.
And then the semi-main, it looks to be, the at this point, legendary Hiroki Goto versus the Holy Emperor.
Yes.
Hiroki Goto has been at this for, 14, 15 years at this point?
This is his 14th consecutive time night right now to try and win it since winning it back in 2008.
God bless that man. And correct me if I'm wrong, Hiroki Goto is his own man. He's not affiliated with any major stable.
He's part of Chaos. He is also 1/3 of the IWGP six-man heavyweight champions, and his tag team is, of course, with Yoshihashi. Of course, they come off a losing effort in MetLife Dome for the IWGP heavyweight tag titles, but he's part of Chaos. For the longest time, he wasn't part of anything until Okada invited him in. Goto reluctant at first, but eventually he took Okada's hand and has been part of Chaos ever since.
And he has not let that affiliation change him in really any way, shape, or form. We are pretty much guaranteed to get the classic Hiroki Goto that will go to any length and endure any adversity to get what he feels he has earned for these 14 consecutive appearances. But
Yeah.
do not sleep on Taichi and Suzuki-gun.
No. The thing is, he's known as one of the 4 Black Saints, okay? He wasn't one of the original guys to come to New Japan to be raised for New Japan Pro Wrestling. He came from our promotion, and guys like him and Tomohiro Ishii, they have set the groundwork for New Japan Pro Wrestling. But Taya's always had this major chip on his shoulder, like, why am I not the guy? Why am I not the one with the most respect? Why am I not the MVP of the year? Blah, blah, blah. This really showed off when he was going up against Okada. And no matter what you think of Taiji, he really has changed his outlook when it comes to how he presents himself in the professional wrestling ring. He no longer really uses a lot of the underhanded tactics used to know, because that's Suzuki-gun's way. He really does bring a fight. And he's no stranger facing Hiroki Goto, as these two men did face each other literally earlier this year in the New Japan Cup. This is not their first time encounter.
And nor will it be their last.
Oh, no. Trust me, it won't. And I expect the pass to come off, because that's the most electrifying move in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Don't at me.
No,
yes,
at him all you want. No, at him all you want. He needs a hill to die on.
Look, respect Suzuki-gun, and Taiji's one of my favorite performers. He is also one of the toughest strikers in New Japan Pro Wrestling, with those Kawada kicks as well. But Goto, being a Savage Warrior, literally being trained by Katsuyori Shibata, great friends with him. These two are former IWGP Tag Team Champions. I know Goto's going to bring a hell of a fight. Anyway,
yes, he is. Speaking of people that'll bring a hell of a fight, we move to what I believe should be the opening match of the night. We have Sonata going up against Tama Tonga. Get ready for never open weight levels of physicality, boys.
And also, there's going to be no censorship. So parents, hide your children. Tama Tonga's a loose cannon. Just saying.
Yep.
But yeah, this should be an interesting match. Sonata, of course, he's always that guy that really is kind of like not emotionally showing. He really just kind of holds it all in. And he's not really a striker, as he's more so a technician. He'll try and tie you up with a paradise lock or into the skull and kind of like sleeper hold. He always tries to go for that moonsault in the name of his mentor. And he always plays towards himself as a pro wrestler, being that hope. He comes up the hope of New Japan. He's one of those guys that always thought I could see him as the breakout, but he hasn't broken towards that glass ceiling. The closest he got was facing Okada at Kia Pro Wrestling for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship in a failing effort. He's also, might I add, one half of the finals of last year's G1 in a losing effort against Kota Ibushi.
So do we get that match again for the finals? Somehow I doubt it, but time will tell.
Well, Sonata and Tama Tonga, they have faced each other before in singles action, at least on 3 separate occasions. So whether or not that affects the G1 opener going forward, and the fact that Tama Tonga, does he have a hidden agenda here? Is he fighting for himself, for Bullet Club, for somebody in Bullet Club? What's Tama Tonga's outlook here in this year's G1? It's very interesting, again, seeing GOD in singles action in the G1 in both blocks, respectively. And while I'm sure everybody would love to see a GOD all-out, no pun intended, finale, I don't see that happening. But this has me definitely intrigued for sure.
Yes, indeed. All right. So next match on the card, we move to Bullet Club versus United Empire. Jeff Cobb versus Chase Owens. I am very intrigued by this matchup. Jeff Cobb, probably the epitome of power guys in B Block. You don't want to get into a slugfest with Jeff Cobb. You will not come out standing.
This guy formerly represented in the Olympics for Guam. He is a super heavyweight that moves like a cruiserweight, the things that this man can do. You don't expect normal people to be able to do that. And this will be their first ever singles encounter, period. With Chase Owens coming off a loss in MetLife Dome and Jeff Cobb coming off the biggest win in his entire pro wrestling career, I feel like Jeff Cobb's definitely going to set the mood for the B Block on who might be the underlying biggest threat towards any previous winner too. As Jeff Cobb, he's never won this thing. And also, this is his third consecutive G1 climax.
Yes, indeed. But what Chase Owens has that I don't think enough people give him credit for is the ability to think on his feet and adapt to just about any situation. It's the whole reason the Bullet Club took him in the first place. Chase Owens is not a guy you want to tiptoe through the tulips with. You cannot afford to take your foot off the gas if you find yourself in control of Chase Owens, because if you give him an inch, he will take you for 10 miles.
Making his G1 Climax debut. He's also a Texas heavyweight wrestling champion. Again, he is one of those that definitely is one to watch, but I think it's impossible for him to pull off the package pile driver. He's going to have to rely on that dual heist type clothesline or some very innovative maneuvering around Jeff Cobb's power. If Jeff Cobb gets his hands on Chase Owens, it could be game over.
Pretty much. That's what I'm thinking. Speaking of game overs, we move to the final match we have not talked about yet. It is the battle of the single name people, Yoshihashi versus Evil. Yoshihashi's been in New Japan Pro Wrestling for what feels like forever. He has seen it all. He has done pretty much everything a man of his stature can do within this company. Evil, by comparison, he hasn't been in New Japan for very long. I think he's been in New Japan almost a decade, if I'm not much mistaken.
A little bit of that, yes.
Yeah. And with the jump last year from LIJ to Bullet Club, and you have to remember, Evil was, I don't know if I'd necessarily call him friends with everybody in LIJ, but but I'm pretty sure he was part of the famous roll call, and everybody in LIJ respected him, not only as a competitor, but as a human being. With the jump to Bullet Club and the addition of the Tommy gun, he has become a force that you can never you got to have at least one eye on Evil at all times, especially with the late Jim Barnett's favorite fast food dish, the Dick to Go, in his corner. You cannot afford to take even so much. You can't even afford to blink when you're across the ring from Evil. He will pull something out of his ass to pull out the win from nowhere.
Ever since joining the Bullet Club, Evil has relied to every possible dirty tactic he could, bringing his new Parade in Dick Togo. And whether or not we get simply just the Garrett, a steel chair, or of course the exposed turnbuckle pad is another thing. Whether Abe-san once again suffers the blunt of a clash clothesline with the barricade that sends him in the table over, or Abe-san. This is going to be Evil's chance for redemption. Last year, Evil and Yoshihashi, they literally faced up against each other, and despite all the tricks and circumstances, Yoshihashi overcame Evil and won. This being the opener, Evil's going to be looking for revenge. And with this new faction behind him, it might be a different, fortunate outcome.
Yes, indeed. But only time will tell, and we have a little over a week until these matches take place. So, Noah, you took the chance of putting me on the spot with the previous block. I now do the same for you. I now offer you the same chance. Shoot from the hip here. Who are you picking?
Well, let's see here. Again, we got first time ever match. We got return matches here. We got renewed rivalries. And I feel like you got a super match here, definitely with Sonata and Tamatanga. So I'm going to just go like this. Yoshihashi has already outsmarted Evil before, but Evil's got extra backup in Show and Yujiro. There's no doubt in my mind those two are going to somehow be involved in this year's G1 towards Evil trying to claim victory. Dick Togo alone almost helped Evil won the block last year. That being said, I think Evil sets the pace here, and I'm going to go with Evil pulling out the win, reluctantly. As far as Jeff Cobb and Chase Owens, Jeff Cobb has been literally the MVP of the United Empire besides Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay is not involved in the G1. It's an all factor. I feel that both him and Chase Owens are going to go at this pure singles bout only. And right now, Chase Owens is coming off a loss, and this is Chase Owens' debut. Chase Owens, he really has to test himself to see can he endure, because that's the G1. It is a test of endurance. In this opener, though,
it is a marathon.
Yes, in this opener, though, I think Jeff Cobb will get the victory. Taiji and Hiroki Goto, again, these two, they have very similar, I feel like, connections with the fans when it comes to the way they are regarded, but also they have a similar retrospective to themselves, the way they see themselves as a pro wrestler. These two are going to test each other thoroughly, but with Taiji, of course, coming off the victory against Goto and Yoshihashi with Zack Sabre Jr. in his corner for the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championships, I think Taiji will get the win here one way or another with Black Mephisto. Which then leads me towards my sleeper of the night, Sonata and Tama Tonga. Again, I do not know Tama Tonga's state. We have not seen GOD involved in any in-ring action whatsoever since losing the IWGP Tag Team Championships to Dangerous Tekkers. Again, so that being said, Sonata, of course, he's had his ups and downs. It looks like he was taking a different journey with Naito as they were going after the tag gold. They won it, then they lost it, and they tried to reclaim it, and they failed at that. But Sonata, again, he last year made it to the finals. But he did not start winning until literally his third match. He went 6 in a row to make it there. Whether or not we set the same pace and tell the same story here, regards to be seen as this is our opener. But again, it is Tama Tonga, and the good bad guy is going to use tactics I feel like Sonata might not be ready for. Because again, these two, this is going to be a neat match. Tama Tonga has not been in ring action at all. I got one of his Sonata's nines at. I am going to say that Tama Tonga wins this here. Sonata, he starts the way he did last year. Don't count him out, though, out of this first match. Which leads me to the match that can literally be a coin flip 50 times, and you still won't have statistical analysis to pick the right winner. Hiroshi Tanahashi, current IWGP US Heavyweight Champion, coming off a great match, beating Lance Archer for the title. And before that, facing Shingo Takagi for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. An absolute banger coming this close towards winning the gold and being that standard bearer. But he still is the ace for a reason. And then Okada, man, Okada, again, letting his own right, 32 years old, but since losing the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship back at last year's Wrestle Kingdom, he truly hasn't been the same since. He's had up and down momentum as far as the singles matches goes, but he just lost in the MetLife Dome to Jeff Cobb. I gotta imagine that rattles him. But if there's one person that can bring out the best Okada that we know and love, it is the ace. Hiroshi Tanahashi and Okada are no strangers to each other, like I said before. And I feel Okada really wants to win the G1. Because again, the only title that matters to Okada, while he experimented with KOPW and tag titles, is literally the IWGP Heavyweight Champion itself. And whether or not he agrees with the World Heavyweight Championship, that's the title in New Japan. You know he wants that to redefine his legacy. He has to get the win here to start that. And whether or not this leads towards a US title down the line and he's willing to go after that, I think Okada pulls out the win here and sets his mood towards the G1. And maybe finally we get that true Okada that relies on the Rainmaker, not the money clip, and literally goes the whole way to try and reclaim his seat at the top.
The only pick you made that I disagree on is the main event.
That's what I figured. Go ahead. Explain your thesis.
Well, the only thing I really feel I need to explain, because you explained everything else pretty well for me. The only thing I feel I really need to explain. Arigato ne. The only thing I really feel that I can say here is Hiroshi Tanahashi did not get where he is by accident. That man has. You want to talk about Kota Ibushi having a never say die attitude? Tanahashi had the never say die attitude before Kota Ibushi was even signed to the dojo.
And he walks in pain every day because of it.
Yes, he does. But what comes with that is the willingness and the ability to shunt that pain aside, which should be impossible for just about any other man.
Pretty much.
Not to mention, it was 2 years ago, as James mentioned, the last time you and I did a New Japan preview show.
Yeah, for Wrestle Kingdom.
It was 2019 that Tanahashi was probably at his lowest point with that busted arm.
Yeah.
Even with that busted arm, he and Zack Sabre Jr. carried Revolution Pro Wrestling on their backs, having a year's worth of classics with the busted arm of Tanahashi.
At Royal Clinic,
there-
at Madison Square Garden, and at the Destruction Tour. You're absolutely right.
If there is any man you can never count out in New Japan Pro Wrestling, go Ace.
Well, again, how fitting that these two set the mood for G1 Climax in the opening day of their block, and they're in the same block together. Again, already these opening days for each block, we're going to have instant classics to be like, I gotta go rewatch this match. How the hell do they keep doing this? Oh my gosh. And again, we're also talking about two of the most predominant pro wrestlers and G1 Climax performers and winners. Tanahashi, who might I add, has literally won the G1 Climax 3 times in his 20th consecutive G1 Climax. And Okada, who literally has won this thing 2 times in his 10th consecutive G1 Climax. So again, toss a coin how many times you want. You still won't have a true answer. But to think that you could have a draw in any of these matches, these opening days, is not something I would take too likely, because we see matches go very close to that time limit, especially during Tetsuya Nato's run, where he was defending his legacy as champion. But the bottom line is this. We are in for some incredible setup towards the journeys of every man here in the G1, where this tournament defines you, but physically it damn sure can break you. And
yes, indeed. And you're talking about
wait for this.
No, indeed. And you're talking about the infrequency of matches going to draws in the G1. If any match is going to go to a draw, it's going to be Tanahashi and Okada.
Well, again, Tanahashi, who has the most in-ring time overall, and I believe the most matches performed overall in the G1, is nothing to shy about either. When I look at last year's times here, just to give you a bit of an idea, I mean, you got to think about this. Literally, the G1 Climax, you are literally testing your body to the absolute limit. We talked about some of the matches that are literally happening. Yoshihashi's longest match in last year's G1 went about 18 minutes. Not so nearly with the time limit in several of his matches, as you can see here. Sonata, who's been very slow-paced during certain times, he's also had some matches that have gone very close as well. And literally, some of these opening matches literally are repeat matches from last year's G1 as well. I mean, look at it. We got Yoshihashi versus Evil, for example, where again, it was Evil, who got the victory over him after 17 minutes and 21 seconds. So again, the things that define you in the G1 is pace and endurance. And if you cannot carry both of those things, you're pretty much set up, I feel like, on a one-way trip towards defeat or being eliminated. So with that being said, Casey, we talked about the opening days. We talked about our aspects. We looked at the statistics of everybody involved in the G1 as far as their consecutive times, the winning streaks, etc. And just to give people an idea, I'm going to go ahead and show you all this. As you can see, we got multi-time G1 Climax winners here. We literally have debuts. We've had people involved in last year's finals. It's a who's who of what you think could happen this year in New Japan Pro Wrestling, where the landscape right now feels so unpredictable. I don't feel like there's a defined route right now in New Japan for somebody to win this or who wants to win this the most. So regarding that, Casey, what are your thoughts towards who you think needs to win the G1 Climax of the year the most?
Damn, you know how to ask the tough questions.
Again, I tried. Again, you're talking to somebody that's a fan of pro wrestling. Keyword, pro wrestling, not sports entertainment. But that's a story for a different day. Stay tuned for the next wrestling right now. Anyway, while you ponder that, go ahead and look at this and really think about it. Because again, the winner of the G1 sets the pace and identity towards what to expect in the main event Wrestle Kingdom if they can continue to proclaim that this is theirs. Because again, the winner is going to be tested no matter what. And we finally saw that the main event of the Tokyo Dome can indeed change. So can that change again for the second consecutive year?
Okay, I'm looking at this list. I can't necessarily pick one person who I think needs to win it the most, but I can narrow it down to a list of 5 that I think would most benefit from a G1 victory.
Go for it.
You go, in my opinion, the 5 that can benefit from it the most are Taichi, Jeff Cobb, Uh, Tomohiro Ishii. Probably Sonata. And Zack Sabre Jr.
You know, again, Zack Sabre Jr., he's won the New Japan Cup. He came this close towards beating Okada for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship back at Sakura Genesis. Again, it's the one thing Zack Sabre Jr. hasn't done, but it looks like Zack Sabre Jr. and Taiji right now, they really are focused towards being the best tag team in the world. And while they are restricted by the pandemic to face the tag teams in the Forbidden Door, I can name like 5 I want to see them face right now. It would be interesting to see either Taiji or Zack Sabre Jr. claim victory for Suzuki-gun in the G1 Climax. I gotta be honest here. Personally, there's one person I feel like that needs to win this to revalidate himself, and that is Okada. Ever since literally January 4th, 2020, Okada has not been the same. He's been relying on this money clip thing. He's been experimenting with tag titles and exhibition type matches. It's not right to see Okada without the title. It feels like Okada is incomplete. I don't feel like the Rainmaker will truly be the same guy we saw face Omega back at Wrestle Kingdom 11, face Tanahashi 3 consecutive years at Wrestle Kingdom, and held to Japan on his back, including facing Tomohiro Ishii and Minoru Suzuki as well. I feel like Okada has to win this to a degree, or at least be involved in the finals. He wasn't even involved in the finals last year. Keep that in mind. You brought up Sonata, who was involved in the finals last year in a losing effort. So again, can Sonata make his way to the finals, but actually claim the victory? It seems like so close. We think Sonata, he can do it. He could be that guy. He could be that guy to hold New Japan. He always falls short. So
first time for everything.
Well, that's true. But again, with the field of so many previous G1 Climax winners, are we going to get a first time? And that being said, you figure about also first time, you figure about those that have returned that haven't won this thing before. Let's look at score averages, because again, when you figure out the scores, those really also what defines really who could carry themselves into the finals. I mean, you look at these scores from last year, and of course, this is the entire field of last year. And again, almost, I think like 15 of these people were involved in last year's G1 Climax. Kota Ibushi, he was the standard bearer with 14 points. Okada, of course, getting 12. A lot of these people on average, though, they seem to hit middle ground like 8 or 6. And the fact that we got Toriano still in this thing still freaking baffles me. But I guess the type of victories he got over certain people is the reason why he's back in this thing as well. Who do you think could be the scorekeeper, or who do you think could be the highest point getter this year to keep up with? Who's going to be the biggest threat in the G1?
Well, let me take a look.
Again, Kota Ibushi last year, he got 14. Okada, he scores an average of 12. Naito scored an average of 12. And their averages are probably 8 to 10 points overall when you figure out how many times they've been involved in the G1. Again, Yujiro, he pulled out 1 victory. That's it.
Yes. As far as being the highest scorers, I'm going to say either Sonata, or if he finally gets his act together, Okada.
Well, again, Okada, he comes so close, but again, he faced devastating defeat at the hands of Sonata, might I add, who was one of the big people to beat him during the G1 as well. Again, not Okada, he was really going into this thing as the champion, or trying to get back as champion, because again, that was last year, but I digress. Bottom line is this: we are going to see one-of-a-kind matches. I expect shocking results in bracket busters. And folks, that is your opening coverage for G1 Climax 31. We don't know the tagline. Last year was Be the One. I feel like the same thing still applies here, because at the end of the day, who will be the one to claim victory and claim themselves as grade 1 and get their golden ticket, hopefully, to the Wrestle Kingdom main event, where again, 3 days, Casey, 3 days. 3 freaking days. 2 days in Tokyo Dome. And
Count
one day, and one day in Yokohama Arena. What? Am I going to get 2 New Year's dashes? But I digress. My brain's going to explode. That being said, that being said, folks, that's all I have to say. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And Sandy, I know you'll probably watch this too. All right, guys, I'll always appreciate your support and positive attitude. Stay tuned again. As me and Casey, we will schedule a time where we will be back with you regarding our thoughts at the end of both these opening days in one simple video too, and who we think is really going to set the pace for G1 down the line. But with that being said, Casey, always a pleasure, sir. Literally, man, you and I, we are our own commentary team at Cosmic Professional Wrestling. Any last thoughts and anything you want to plug or promote, and where can people connect with you?
You can connect with me on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. I'm CTroop19 on Twitter, Luke Lynch on YouTube, Luke 12 Lynch on Twitch. The easiest way to get to me is probably Twitter. But yeah, subscribe to FTW Productions, Weymouth Youth Wrestling, the Simple Man Studios, and the other big thing I have to say, besides one last potential wrap up, if you will, you mentioned that you and I are pretty much a commentary team on our own.
Yeah.
What would you say to, just for laughs, calling a previous G1 final?
I absolutely would love to. I mean, come on, there have been classic finals. You pick a year and I say, let's go for it. They literally have.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Like, you think about the finals, and those have been like match of the year candidates. Last year, of course, being Kota Ibushi and Sonata. And then, of course, you at one point had Kenny Omega and Hiroki Goto. You had Tetsuya Naito and Kenny Omega. The list goes on and on. There have been classics galore. We go all the way back to the very first G1, when it became the G1 back in 1991, where it was won by, spoiler alert for those that don't know, the legend himself, Masahiro Chono.
Mr. August, the only man to ever win the G1 5 times.
And I honestly don't know if anybody, even Kota Ibushi or Tanahashi for that matter, could even tie that. But yeah,
nor do I think they should.
For that.
All right then, awesome.
So,
well, ladies and gentlemen, yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the marathon is upon us in a week's time as of recording. It is absolutely that. It is the most grueling marathon any professional wrestler can ever endure. But it is about more than just being a survivor. It is about being the top one. It is about being grade one. It is about simply being the one.
And some point in the middle of October, we will find out who this year's one is. So stay tuned for that, folks. Casey, again, always a pleasure. And folks, you want to know more about me?
The pleasure is mine.
Oh, God bless you. The folks, you want to know more about me? Know this. I'm just a simple man and a lifelong fan of professional wrestling. So follow me on Twitter, keep following this platform on YouTube, or find me on Instagram, AdamFoster1916, for all things wrestling. And shout out to the HW family on Twitter as well. We will be back with another ATW view very soon regarding our outlooks towards the rebranding of what we once loved in the Black and Gold NXT, along with so much more. And please follow Terry Turnbuckle and my friend Simi G on their platforms as well. I just did a one-on-one interview regarding my live All Elite experience. That will be coming out shortly on the Terry Turnbuckle Network, so stay tuned for more on that. Again, if you want to be part of the fun, let us know your predictions. Stay tuned for my live tweets. And of course, Simple Takes. We'll be back again together with a dual Simple Take of the 2 days of opening action, the first day for each block. And as always, let the close. There are no winners, there are no losers, there are no bears. They're just fans with opinions for this passion we all share. At the end of the day, folks, support one another, respect each other, and just enjoy life and enjoy wrestling. Simple as that. And stay tuned, because me and him might be back on the Jeff Meacham Network giving you our play-by-play for Bound for Glory next month in October for Impact Wrestling. And who knows what else. And please follow the Jeff Meacham Network as well, and No DQ. So that being said, that's all I got for now as I go rest my voice, prepare for church. So for the Wrestling Encyclopedia, Casey Gallagher, I am the Simple Man Noah Foster. We hope you enjoyed the simple conversation and preview towards G1 Climax 31. It is going to be a hell of a ride. Buckle up. I can't wait for it to get started this coming weekend. I thank you all for your time. And until the next video, as always, be smart, be safe, be true, be you. And thank you for being a friend in professional wrestling too. Genyo. Sayonara.
And for the final, in the immortal words of the founder himself, to close it out. Ich, ni, san, da!
Simple as that.